If you enjoy the content, I would appreciate you hitting the subscribe button and checking out my socials.
Widely known as one of Counter-Strike's perfect aimers, NiKo uses his reactive positioning in combination with his precise crosshair to obliterate opponents in his way, marking himself as the king of A on CT and T. Hey, I'm Smirky, and today I want to look at NiKo and how he defaults Palace on the T-side of Mirage, so let's begin.
Now, we're going to start at the very start. At the start of the round, NiKo will tend to give his smoke to one of his teammates to smoke off window or top mid. I've seen him drop the smoke to his teammates a few times, however there are some occasions where NiKo himself will throw the smoke. I'm unsure on why he does this, but it might be because of the strat they're playing, or maybe because of the spawns. I'm unsure. Now, after throwing the smoke, NiKo will either go to Palace, ramp, or if his IGL calls for it, he'll go mid. But it's worth noting in this video, I'm not going to be looking at mid, as this video will be based around Palace and ramp. By far, Palace is NiKo's favourite area to go to at the start of the round. When he comes over, he's very careful with his crosshair. As he comes around the corner, he's ready for any players near this pillar. And then when he's crossed, he will peek any players holding from the entrance. Once he's cleared Palace, he will then pick a position to play. In round 4 against Astralis, we will see something similar, except this time NiKo will throw this flashbang, blinding any players peeking from the entrance, typically being AWPers. Once NiKo has cleared Palace, at this point he will pick a position to play. In this round, he's going to hold ramp. The last way you can clear Palace is by holding a tight angle. In this round, NiKo is going to come into Palace and jump on this ledge, looking at this entrance. From this position, he can catch any players making their way inside of Palace. But do note, if they are running, it might be difficult for you to hit the shot. And it's also worth noting from this position, if a CT takes this pathing, you won't have visibility of them until they come into your sightlines. But after holding for a short period, NiKo will jump down and clear Palace. Now that we understand how to approach Palace, let's see how NiKo approaches ramp. It is pretty rare for NiKo to start ramp, as the large majority of his time is spent inside of Palace. But there are a few occasions where he goes ramp. Simply, he might just go there to hold it. In this round, he jumps on top of the ledge and takes a nice angle onto ramp. And we will take a close look at this position later in the video. When NiKo has the spawn for ramp, he might make this play, where he will try to run out of ramp, meanwhile he has a teammate at Monacy holding stairs. And as NiKo ran through the Molotov, listen to how many times his health ticked. Only once. So by him only taking one tick, and him quickly getting to this corner, it's possible that Stair doesn't know that he's here, giving NiKo an element of surprise. Once NiKo feels confident, he will slowly peek out, where he gets the kill. At this point, it's up to you if you want to fall back to ramp, or you want to apply the pressure, depending on what type of player you are. In this round, GT want to apply the pressure. In this round, Monacy is going to flash stairs, allowing NiKo to go for kills. In round 8 against Astralis, we will see something very similar, but in this round the Molotov landed pretty close. So unfortunately NiKo wasn't able to run through it, unlike the previous example. For a short period, Monacy and NiKo are going to be in this setup, where NiKo will be playing anti-flash, ready to peek if Monacy becomes blind while he's holding this angle. When the CT flash comes in, Monacy needs to turn away and NiKo will take the angle. At this point, NiKo is going to peek out, and I believe he's doing this because the CTs might not be expecting a play like this to happen shortly after flashing ramp. This play will allow him to catch the Vice, and he almost wins the fight on Stair. Now that we understand how to approach Palace and ramp, I want to take a look at positioning
as it's very important to maintain control. Our first position is hiding behind pillar inside of palace. From this position, NiKo is completely hidden to the entrance of palace. Meanwhile, he has this little gap to spot for any players making their way in. But from this position, NiKo will occasionally do some jiggles, ready to spot any CT players making their way in. And in this round, NiKo is going to be jiggling for a very long time until his team wants to execute onto A. A really weird off angle you could play is this one inside of palace. In this, NiKo is going to come in front of this pillar and stand right in front of it. The aim of this is to play a weird position that the CTs might not clear with their crosshair, giving NiKo the upper hand. But in this round, NiKo won't get any contact. If you want to hold ramp after clearing palace, you could play this one. In this, NiKo will put his fist against these wooden planks and hold for any players pushing into T spawn. NiKo has put his fist against these wooden planks, but it's worth noting these won't give you cover. I believe he's making his model a bit harder to see, again hopefully giving him the upper hand. In this round, NiKo is going to hold it for a very long time, but later he wants to go back into palace. Now, instead of running back into palace, look on how he approaches it. He will carefully clear his angles, just in case a CT decided to push while he was away, being ready for any weird positions from the CT side. Now, it's worth noting on the CT side, it's pretty common for them to push into ramp in the scenario they lose mid. NiKo doesn't play ramp a lot, but this is the only position I've seen him play to hold it. In this, he will come to this corner and start jiggling, waiting for any possible CT players to push down into ramp. However, in this round, Hunter will come in to help play in a setup. In this setup, Hunter will be holding for players walking out, meanwhile NiKo will be hiding behind this corner, but he will peek out when Hunter gets contact. Typically NiKo plays inside of palace, and from palace he can cause a lot of pressure. So let's take a look at that. One of his most common tendencies is to throw a Molotov for scaffolding. NiKo will tend to throw this when his team wants to execute A. To do this, he puts his back against this pillar, aims at the top part of this corner, and do a short run and left click throw. This Molotov will cover the entire top of scaffold, reducing the angles NiKo and his team needs to worry about when they execute A. And in round 2 we can see something similar, where his team are about to split into the site and he will throw the Molotov. If the CTs are throwing a smoke for palace, you can use that to your advantage by Molotoving under. To do this, NiKo will put his fist against this corner, aim at the bottom right of this gate, get stuck in the bottom left of this corner wall, and left click throw. I'll show the entire round later in this video, but the Molotov will be very effective in clearing positions for himself and his teammates. Again, if the CTs have smoked off palace, you can use that to your advantage. In this round, NiKo will go in front of this pillar and line his crosshair up. I believe he lines his crosshair up with the third bar to the right and towards the bottom. Once he's got his crosshair ready, he will get stuck in the bottom left corner and then start spraying, hoping to kill any CTs played. Now the last thing I want to take a look at is what NiKo does during an execute. As a palace player, I believe palace during an execute is a power position, as from one spot you can take so many different angles, so you tend to see the better aimers play this area during an execute. The first round I want to take a look at is a perfect example of crosshair placement. In this round, G2 are going to be doing an A split, 2 players from T-spawn and 1 player from connector. When NiKo wants to peek out, he will look for players in jungle, players around connector, stairs, sandwich, players on this headshot angle, and then scaffolding. Then once he's cleared these first set of positions, he will then move over to the site, where again he will clear jungle, look at this close angle on site, and then triple. At this point, if he wants to, he can either play from palace, or he can jump down and clear the site. Against Astralis, we will see very similar crosshair placement.
making sure he doesn't overlook an angle. And it's worth noting in this round, G2 are doing a mid to B, while also heavily pressuring connector. Due to this, 2 of the CTA players are looking at mid, completely unaware of NiKo's unsuspecting lurk. Now, as mentioned before in the video, it's pretty common for CT players to push ramp when the Ts take mid. So, because of this, NiKo's very wise to the idea that a CT might have pushed ramp. So, he will go and check it. Not only does this round show an amazing crosshair placement, but NiKo uses his team as a perfect distraction for him to lurk out, catching CTs by surprise. As I mentioned before, Palace can be a power position, and let me explain why. In this round, his team has already executed onto the site, so he doesn't need to clear all of his angles. So instead, he will isolate some angles and wait for his team to get contact where he can later peek out. This might seem a little bit baity, but I don't believe it is baiting as long as you get the trade. So you will see as m0NESY approaches the site, NiKo will peek out into CT, ready to defend his teammate. But when he doesn't get contact, he will tuck back in, playing reactionary. And the last thing I want to showcase is what happens if you're smoked off in Palace. Well, in the scenario you are smoked, you could throw the Molotov that I showcased earlier. At this point, because his team are executing onto A, he wants to help instead of being stuck behind a smoke. So he will use this HE to disperse the smoke, allowing him to have vision as he peeks out. But because the smoke is quickly coming back together, he will drop down into the site, playing pretty similar to before, where he will be pretty stationary and will react on what his teammates are doing or fighting. After watching NiKo's demos, I've noticed he's reactive. NiKo tends to lurk out of Palace when his team is doing something, like an execute or a split. And when his team is executing onto A, he will peek out into different areas depending on his team's actions, like planting or fighting. He's precise. When NiKo peeks out onto A, when NiKo peeks into Palace or onto A, his crosshair is so carefully placed, not wanting to overlook a position. And lastly, he is trustworthy. You can trust NiKo to be left on A by himself, and not mess up by doing a silly push or getting caught out. You need to know how to properly take vertical stairs on the T side. Check out this video I made, where I showcase how Zontix and Chopper took stairs on the T side of vertigo. Apart from that, thanks for watching, and see ya in a bit.